Hey everyone, it's Nathan Hayes, IDOC Practice Finance Consultant on the tail end of spring break. Question of the week this week is, how aggressive should my growth goal be? So I've got a practice, I want to set a goal for my staff and me to try to perform to this year. And should it be 5%, 10%, 20%, 50%? How big should it be? And the answer as usual is it depends, but here's how I would approach it. A goal, the purpose of a goal is to stretch you and your team to do things differently, to do them better. And therefore, the goal needs to be one that you probably have a 50-50 shot of making. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is we do get very caught up in percentages. And if you asked and put a gun to my head, the number's 6, 8, 10% somewhere in there for most practices. Smaller practices may need even more. 40 or 50% may be appropriate for a startup practice. But for most established practices, if the average practice at best data we know is growing at about 2% a year, your goal ought to be about double that. So 5, 6, 7% at a minimum. Another way to come at it is ask yourself, set the goal in terms of revenue. And maybe if you think about it that way, the goal should be $100,000, $150,000 in revenue growth a year. The advantage of this is, as opposed to just being some percentage that's always growing, now you have a concrete number to measure to, and you should always bring it back to that. And I'll give you 2 ways to think about how do you track and coach your team to get to $100,000 a year in revenue growth. I've run the math, I can run them with you another time, but basically if you're averaging $300 per comprehensive exam, $100,000 in revenue growth means you need to see 10 more patients a week. And how did I get there? Well, I took $100,000, divided it by 300, which is going to be 3,300 patients a year, divided that by 52, which is about 6 more or 7 more patients a week on average. And then let's assume that 2/3 of your exams are comprehensive, so another third are follow-ups and contact lens checks, and the rest medical visits. At that point, you're looking at 2/3 of 6 is 2/3 of 10, so there you go, 10 more patients a week. And now you can set a goal to say, okay, we need to work on recall, we need to work on marketing, we need to work on other things to do it. And revenue growth is going to come one of 2 ways, remember. Either you're going to see more patients, and this is the very simplest way of thinking of it. You'll either see more patients or you will generate more revenue per exam. So another way to do it is say, okay, we're seeing 3,500 patients a year, and maybe you're in a limited space and you really can't get more patients on the schedule. Then the growth goal is going to come from generating the more revenue per exam. And so, okay, let's divide by the number of patients we're seeing, or take $100,000, divide it by the number of patients we're seeing, and then ask, what's the revenue per exam increase? Again, I think you should go for both, but there's the answer to the question of the week. If you're looking for a revenue goal, growth goal, make it one that you have a 50-50 chance of making, because you have to, you've got to force yourself and your staff to change and do things better. That's the point of a goal. And secondly, try to break it down to a revenue number, and then map the path and show the way that if we want to go $100,000 or $150,000 in revenue, that means we need to see X number of more patients per week, or we need to generate Y amount more per exam, and then you can coach to those benchmarks. Hope everyone's had a great week, and be back in the office Monday if you have any questions. Thanks.